Imagine a nation born from the endless grasslands of Asia that, within just a few decades, grew into the largest contiguous empire in human history. Tonight, let the extraordinary story of the Mongol Empire gently guide you into a peaceful sleep. Welcome. If you enjoy relaxing and immersive history stories, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new journey through the past. Now, settle in, relax, and join me as we explore the complete story of the Mongol Empire, from Genghis Khan to Kublai Khan, Babwan, the boy who would change the world. Long before the name Genghis Khan echoed across continents, there was only a boy named Temujin. No one could have imagined that this child, born among the windswept grasslands of Mongolia around the year 1162, would one day alter the course of human history. The endless steppe seemed peaceful beneath its wide blue sky, yet beneath that beauty lay a world shaped by hardship, tribal rivalries, and the constant struggle for survival. Life on the Mongolian steppe was unlike life in the great cities of Asia or Europe. There were no towering walls to offer protection, no fertile kingdoms providing endless harvests, and no permanent homes that could withstand the harsh seasons. Families traveled with their herds across vast open plains, following the rhythm of nature. Every day demanded resilience. Every winter tested endurance. Every decision could determine whether a clan would survive or disappear forever. Temujin was born into the Borjigin clan, the son of a respected tribal leader named Yasugi. His father dreamed that his son would inherit not only his position but also the strength needed to unite divided tribes. Yet fate had different plans. While returning from arranging Temujin's future marriage, Yasugi was poisoned by enemies. His sudden death shattered the family's security almost overnight. Without their leader, the clan abandoned Temujin's family. Friends became strangers. Allies vanished without a word. His mother, Holun, was left alone to raise her children on the unforgiving steppe. Food became scarce. They survived by gathering wild plants, catching fish, and hunting small animals whenever fortune allowed. Hunger was no longer an occasional hardship. It became part of everyday life. For many families, such suffering would have marked the end of their story. Yet for Temujin, these difficult years quietly became the foundation of his future. Every challenge taught him patience. Every betrayal revealed the value of loyalty. Every cold night beneath the open sky strengthened a determination that few could see. As he grew into adulthood, Temujin learned to ride with remarkable skill, to hunt with precision, and to understand the complicated relationships between rival tribes. He realized that survival depended not only on courage, but also on wisdom. Trust was precious, and leadership could never be sustained through fear alone. One of the greatest turning points came when his wife, Borte, was captured by a rival tribe. Rather than surrender to despair, Temujin gathered loyal companions and launched a daring rescue. The successful mission became far more than a personal victory. It demonstrated that even in a divided land, trust and cooperation could overcome impossible odds. Gradually, more warriors chose to follow him. They were drawn not merely by his strength, but by his fairness. Temujin rewarded ability instead of noble birth. He valued loyalty above family connections and welcomed capable followers regardless of their background. These ideas were revolutionary in a society where power had long been inherited rather than earned. As alliances expanded, scattered tribes slowly began to unite under his leadership. Old rivalries faded as a new vision emerged, a vision of a people no longer weakened by endless conflict among themselves. Temujin understood that true greatness could only be achieved through unity. Then came the moment that would forever change history. In 1206, after years of hardship, struggle, and remarkable victories, tribal leaders gathered on the vast Mongolian steppe to recognize a new ruler. Before thousands of loyal followers, Temujin received a new title, Genghis Khan, often understood to mean the universal ruler. Few could have predicted what would happen next. The forgotten boy who had once searched for food across the lonely grasslands now stood at the beginning of an extraordinary journey. His ambitions would soon carry Mongol horsemen across deserts, mountains, forests, and continents, creating an empire unlike anything the world had ever seen. And this was only the beginning. Bab 2. Building the greatest conquering army. When Temujin was proclaimed Genghis Khan in 1206, his greatest challenge had only just begun. Uniting the Mongol tribes was an extraordinary achievement, but holding them together required something even more remarkable. Throughout history, many alliances had fallen apart as quickly as they were formed. Genghis Khan understood that if his people were to survive and prosper, they needed more than courage. They needed discipline, organization, and a completely new way of thinking about war. Unlike many rulers of his time, Genghis Khan did not place his trust solely in noble families or inherited titles. Instead, he believed that true leadership should be earned through loyalty, wisdom, and ability. A shepherd with exceptional skill could rise to command hundreds of warriors, while a noble who failed his people could lose his position without hesitation. This simple yet revolutionary idea transformed the Mongol army into a force where merit mattered more than birth. To create order among thousands of warriors, Genghis Khan introduced a carefully structured military system based on groups of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000 soldiers. Every man knew his place within the larger whole, and every commander was responsible for those under his leadership. Communication became faster, decisions became clearer, and even the largest armies could move with astonishing coordination across the endless plains. From an early age, Mongol men learned to ride horses almost as naturally as they learned to walk. Their horses were small but incredibly resilient, capable of traveling vast distances across difficult terrain. Each warrior often traveled with several horses, allowing them to switch mounts during long journeys without slowing their pace. This remarkable mobility gave the Mongols an advantage that few enemies could match. Equally impressive was their mastery of the composite bow. Crafted from wood, horn, and sinew, it was compact enough to use while riding at full speed, yet powerful enough to strike targets from great distances. Mongol horse archers could release arrows with astonishing accuracy while galloping across open fields, making them among the most feared warriors of the medieval world. Yet victory depended on far more than speed and skill. Genghis Khan valued information as much as weapons. Scouts rode ahead to study rivers, mountain passes, and enemy defenses. Merchants and travelers often carried valuable news about distant kingdoms, helping commanders understand unfamiliar lands before the army even arrived. Every campaign was carefully prepared long before the first arrow was fired. The Mongols also mastered psychological warfare. Sometimes they appeared weaker than they truly were, tempting their enemies into reckless pursuit before suddenly surrounding them from every direction. On other occasions, they offered peaceful surrender, promising mercy to cities that opened their gates without resistance. Many accepted these terms, while those who refused often discovered the devastating consequences of defying the Mongol army. As the years passed, the empire expanded beyond the Mongolian steppe. Northern China became one of Genghis Khan's first great objectives. The Jin dynasty possessed enormous cities protected by towering walls, sophisticated defenses, and large professional armies. To many observers, these fortifications seemed impossible to overcome. But the Mongols were quick learners. They adopted siege technology from captured engineers, built powerful trebuchets, and patiently adapted their tactics to challenges they had never faced before. Each victory strengthened the confidence of the army. Every campaign brought new knowledge, new allies, and new resources. Warriors from different cultures joined the empire, contributing their own skills in engineering, medicine, administration, and logistics. The Mongol military became more than a cavalry force. It evolved into a sophisticated machine capable of operating across deserts, forests, mountains, and fertile river valleys. News of the Mongols spread across Asia, like the wind sweeping over the steppe. Merchants whispered stories of an army that could appear without warning and vanish before sunrise. Kings reinforced their walls, generals revised their battle plans, and entire kingdoms watched the eastern horizon with growing unease. But Genghis Khan was not satisfied with regional victories. Beyond the mountains and deserts lay wealthy empires, ancient civilizations, and distant lands few Mongols had ever seen. His vision extended far beyond the borders of Mongolia, and the campaigns that followed would transform the history of Eurasia forever. The greatest expansion of the Mongol Empire was about to begin. The empire that stretched across continents. With an army unlike any the world had ever seen, Genghis Khan turned his attention beyond the familiar grasslands of Mongolia. Before him stretched an immense world filled with prosperous kingdoms, ancient cities, and powerful empires that had flourished for centuries. Few believed that a nation of nomadic horsemen could challenge such civilizations. Yet history was about to witness one of its most extraordinary transformations. The Mongol armies advanced with remarkable speed, crossing landscapes that many believed were impossible to traverse. They rode across scorching deserts where water was scarce, climbed rugged mountain passes blanketed with snow, and followed endless rivers that led toward distant kingdoms. Their ability to travel rapidly, adapt to unfamiliar environments, and coordinate over vast distances amazed both allies and enemies alike. One of Genghis Khan's greatest campaigns led him into Central Asia, where the wealthy Khwarezmian Empire controlled important trade routes along the Silk Road. At first, Genghis Khan sought peaceful relations through diplomacy and commerce. Merchants were sent to establish trade, hoping that mutual prosperity could replace conflict. But when several of those merchants were executed and Mongol envoys were humiliated and killed, the possibility of peace disappeared. To Genghis Khan, the murder of diplomatic envoys was not simply an insult. It was an unforgivable betrayal. He responded with overwhelming determination. The Mongol armies marched westward, capturing one fortified city after another with astonishing efficiency. Even heavily defended strongholds that had stood for generations eventually fell before the disciplined strategies of the Mongol commanders. The cities of Central Asia became gateways to an even larger world. Soon the Mongols entered the rich lands of Persia, where magnificent architecture, thriving marketplaces, and centers of learning had flourished for centuries. Although many cities suffered greatly during the invasions, skilled artisans, engineers, physicians, and scholars were often spared and welcomed into the growing empire. Genghis Khan understood that knowledge could be as valuable as military strength. The Mongol advance continued across the vast Eurasian landscape. Their horsemen crossed rivers that seemed endless, entered dense forests unlike the open steppe they called home, and eventually reached the cold northern lands of the Rus principalities. The princes of these territories had rarely faced an enemy capable of moving so quickly across such enormous distances. One by one, cities were surrounded, defeated, or persuaded to surrender. News of the Mongols spread far beyond the battlefields. In castles across Europe, rulers listened with growing concern to stories brought by frightened merchants and weary travelers. They spoke of disciplined cavalry appearing almost without warning, armies communicating across impossible distances, and commanders whose strategies seemed years ahead of their opponents. Some dismissed these tales as exaggerations, while others quietly began preparing for an enemy they had never seen. By the early 1240s, Mongol forces had entered Eastern Europe, defeating armies in Poland and Hungary. For the first time, the kingdoms of Europe realized that the empire rising in the east was not a distant legend, but a very real force capable of reshaping the continent itself. Fear spread almost as quickly as the Mongol cavalry. Yet at the very height of this astonishing expansion, an unexpected event changed everything. In 1227, during a campaign in western China, Genghis Khan died. The exact circumstances of his death remain one of history's enduring mysteries. Some chronicles speak of illness, others suggest injuries sustained during battle, while later legends offer even more dramatic explanations. Whatever the truth may be, the greatest conqueror of his age was gone. Many expected the empire to collapse without the leader who had united the tribes of Mongolia. Throughout history, powerful empires often fragmented soon after the death of their founders. Rivals competed for power, alliances dissolved, and civil wars consumed once great kingdoms. But the Mongol Empire was different. Before his death, Genghis Khan had built more than an army. He had created institutions, laws, and a system of leadership capable of surviving beyond a single ruler. His sons and grandsons inherited not only vast territories, but also a vision of unity that stretched across continents. The question was no longer whether the Mongol Empire would survive. The question was whether it could evolve from a conquering empire into a civilization capable of ruling the largest land empire the world had ever known. The answer would emerge under the leadership of one remarkable grandson, Kublai Khan. Fab 4. Kublai Khan and the Golden Age of the Mongol Empire. When Genghis Khan passed from history, many believed the Mongol Empire would slowly disappear beneath the weight of its own enormous size. Instead, under the leadership of his descendants, the empire continued to expand. Among them, one ruler would leave a legacy unlike any other. His name was Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, and under his rule the Mongol Empire entered an age remembered not only for conquest, but also for prosperity, innovation, and cultural exchange. Unlike his grandfather, whose reputation was forged on distant battlefields, Kublai Khan understood that governing an empire required different strengths. Victory in war could create an empire, but only wise leadership could preserve it. As the territories under Mongol control stretched across Asia, the Middle East, and parts of Europe, maintaining stability became as important as winning battles. In 1271, Kublai Khan officially established the Yuan dynasty, becoming the first Mongol emperor to rule all of China. Rather than governing from the windswept grasslands of Mongolia, he built his capital at Khanbaliq, the city known today as Beijing. There, magnificent palaces, broad avenues, bustling markets, and impressive administrative buildings reflected the wealth and diversity of one of the largest empires ever assembled. Although Kublai Khan proudly honored his Mongol heritage, he also embraced many aspects of Chinese administration. Experienced scholars, engineers, and officials were invited to help manage the empire. Roads were improved, canals were expanded, agriculture was encouraged, and trade flourished. This blending of Mongol leadership with Chinese institutions created a government unlike any that had existed before. Perhaps nowhere was this transformation more visible than along the Silk Road. Under Mongol protection, merchants traveled more safely than they had in generations. Caravans loaded with silk, porcelain, spices, precious metals, medicines, and rare textiles crossed deserts and mountains, linking civilizations separated by thousands of miles. Goods were exchanged, but so too were languages, religions, scientific discoveries, artistic traditions, and new ideas that enriched societies across Eurasia. Travelers from distant lands marveled at the opportunities created during this remarkable era. Among the most famous was the Venetian merchant Marco Polo, who claimed to have spent years serving in the court of Kublai Khan. His descriptions introduced European readers to a world of extraordinary cities, advanced engineering, paper money, efficient postal systems, and immense imperial wealth. While historians continue to debate certain details of his account, there is little doubt that the Mongol Empire had become one of the most interconnected civilizations of the medieval world. The empire also encouraged remarkable technological progress. Skilled craftsmen from Persia, China, Central Asia, and the Middle East shared techniques that improved architecture, navigation, astronomy, medicine, and manufacturing. Never before had knowledge moved so freely across such an enormous territory. Ideas traveled alongside merchants, diplomats, and pilgrims, creating one of history's greatest periods of cultural exchange. Yet beneath this prosperity, hidden challenges slowly emerged. The empire had become so vast that communication between distant provinces required months of travel. Regional governors gained increasing authority, while members of the royal family competed for influence. Governing millions of people from dozens of cultures demanded constant compromise and extraordinary administrative skill. At the same time, Kublai Khan sought to expand his influence beyond the mainland. His attention turned toward Japan, whose islands lay beyond the Eastern Sea. Massive fleets were assembled, carrying thousands of soldiers across unfamiliar waters. Yet nature proved to be an enemy no army could defeat. Powerful storms scattered the invasion fleets, destroying ships and ending the campaigns before lasting victories could be achieved. Similar difficulties accompanied expeditions into Southeast Asia, where unfamiliar climates, dense jungles, and determined local kingdoms resisted Mongol expansion. These setbacks did not immediately weaken the empire, but they revealed an important truth. Even the greatest military power in the world had limits. As Kublai Khan grew older, the enormous empire became increasingly difficult to hold together. The unity that Genghis Khan had forged through shared purpose slowly gave way to regional ambitions, political rivalries, and growing administrative burdens. The Mongol Empire had reached its greatest height. Yet, as history has shown time and again, the moment of greatest success often marks the quiet beginning of decline. And the final chapter of this extraordinary empire was about to unfold. 5. The decline of the world's largest empire. At its greatest extent, the Mongol Empire stretched from the shores of the Pacific Ocean to the forests of Eastern Europe, connecting more land under one rule than any empire before it. It linked cultures that had once been separated by deserts, mountains, and vast distances. Merchants, scholars, diplomats, and travelers moved across Eurasia with a freedom that had rarely existed in earlier centuries. Yet history teaches a quiet lesson that echoes across every civilization. The greater an empire becomes, the more difficult it is to hold together. After the death of Kublai Khan in 1294, the empire entered a period of gradual transformation. There was no sudden collapse, no single battle that brought everything to an end. Instead, the changes unfolded slowly, almost silently, as the generations passed. The descendants of Genghis Khan continued to rule different regions, but the unity that had once bound them together steadily weakened. The empire gradually separated into several major khanates, each governed by different branches of the royal family. Although they shared a common ancestry, their political interests increasingly differed. The Yuan dynasty ruled China. The Ilkhanate governed Persia. The Chagatai Khanate controlled much of Central Asia. The Golden Horde dominated the vast northern steppes and parts of Eastern Europe. These successor states continued to trade with one another, but cooperation slowly gave way to competition. Local rulers focused on protecting their own territories rather than preserving the unity of the entire empire. Rivalries emerged where loyalty had once prevailed. In China, the Yuan dynasty faced growing difficulties. Floods damaged farmland, harvests declined, and economic pressures placed increasing burdens on ordinary people. Corruption spread through parts of the government, while natural disasters were interpreted by many as signs that heaven had withdrawn its support from Mongol rule. Across the countryside, dissatisfaction slowly turned into resistance. Peasant movements gained strength, local rebellions multiplied, and one uprising after another challenged imperial authority. Among the most influential was the movement later known as the Red Turban Rebellion. Over time, these revolts weakened the Yuan government until, in 1368, rebel forces captured the imperial capital. The Yuan dynasty came to an end, and the Ming dynasty rose in its place. The Mongol rulers withdrew northward to the lands of their ancestors, where they continued to govern Mongolia itself, but their control over China had ended forever. Elsewhere, the story unfolded differently. The Ilkhanate in Persia gradually dissolved through internal struggles and succession disputes. The Chagatai Khanate fragmented into competing territories. The Golden Horde remained powerful for generations, but eventually weakened as new kingdoms and principalities expanded their influence. Little by little, the empire that had once connected continents became a collection of independent states, each following its own path through history. And yet, this was not truly the end. Although Mongol political power faded, the world they had helped shape continued to flourish. The Silk Road remained one of history's greatest networks of commerce and cultural exchange. Ideas traveled farther than ever before. New technologies crossed continents. Scientific discoveries, artistic traditions, religious beliefs, and agricultural knowledge spread between East and West with remarkable speed. Diplomatic missions became more common. Maps became more accurate. trade expanded across thousands of miles. Even military strategy changed forever, influenced by the extraordinary mobility, discipline, and organization first perfected by Mongol commanders. In many ways, the Mongol Empire created one of the earliest forms of interconnected Eurasia, a world where distant civilizations increasingly learned from one another. Today, nearly 8 centuries later, the name Genghis Khan still inspires fascination around the globe. To some, he remains history's greatest conqueror. To others, he was a brilliant military strategist, a visionary leader, or a ruler whose campaigns brought both remarkable achievements and immense human suffering. History rarely offers simple answers. The Mongol Empire was an empire of extraordinary contradictions. It united vast territories while conquering countless cities. It encouraged trade and cultural exchange while also leaving destruction in its wake. It opened roads between civilizations, yet forever changed the lives of millions. Perhaps that is why its story continues to captivate us. As the winds still sweep across the endless Mongolian steppe, the echoes of horses, caravans, and ancient empires seem to linger beneath the open sky. Their kingdoms may have disappeared, their banners may have faded, but their legacy continues to shape the world we know today. And so, our journey through the remarkable story of the Mongol Empire comes to a peaceful close, reminding us that while every empire eventually fades, history itself never truly sleeps. From a lonely boy on the windswept Mongolian steppe to the rulers of the largest contiguous empire in history, the story of Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan reminds us that even the greatest civilizations rise, transform, and eventually fade. Yet their legacy still echoes across the modern world in ways many people never realize. If you enjoyed this journey through history, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more relaxing history stories. Thank you for listening, and may your night be peaceful as history gently carries you into a restful sleep.